Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier. Two Grade 1 stakes races at Santa Anita on Saturday. Let's look at race number 7 on the turf. It's the Shoemaker Mile. Let's take a peek at this field. You've got two very fast horses drawn down to the inside. The number 1, Heart to Heart, who's banked $1.1 million in his career, and that hard-hitting Calbred, the 2, What a View, coming off of a solid gate-to-wire win in the Crystal Water Stakes. Matt, are they going to hook up early?
Dan, we talked a little bit before we came on. I just have such a hard time, and maybe this is a far too simple way of looking at it. I just have a hard time not envisioning the two of these horses throwing it down, and at some point, one of them burns off. The problem is if you like either one of them and they do hook up, I mean, are they going to take the starch out of one another, turn them for home?
This might be a hard argument to make, considering that Heart to Heart has earned triple-digit Beyer speed figures in each of his last 3 races. But I have a sneaking feeling that maybe Heart to Heart isn't in the same form he was when he was really terrorizing runners towards the end of 2015 and 2016. I really think that the old Heart to Heart would have put away the Maker's 46 last time.
Especially when you look at that field, the race thus far hasn't come back particularly strong, and you see the likes of American Patriot, who they're getting very ambitious, sending him over to England, and Conquest Panthera, we know what he is. I agree with you. I think the old Heart to Heart says, you know what, flicks them all away and gets the job done. I wonder if he's lost, maybe not a ton, but a little bit on the fastball and enough to make him vulnerable in a race like this.
Does it bother you that they've tried this game before? They have shipped to the West Coast with Heart to Heart twice. He was a short price on both occasions, and he lost both times. He's going to be a relatively short price again in the Grade 1 Shoemaker Mile. He figures to take heat. Do all of these factors just sort of make this horse look like an underlay on paper?
To me, he's a name, and people gravitate toward names. They also gravitate toward triple-digit Beyer speed figures. I don't want to hold his most recent trip to Southern California against him. For one reason or another, they were content allowing Midnight Storm to go off to the front. They didn't push him at all. If you remember that day, Bejarano was riding Midnight Storm. He just went on with it, and at that point, you and I looked at each other and said, Heart to Heart can't win this race. I would be stunned, absolutely stunned, if they relinquished the lead to What a View. What a View, at least in the past, has shown the ability to just press a pace and still go on with it. I would be stunned if Heart to Heart isn't on the lead.
And Heart to Heart does seem like a different horse when he sits off horses. He may not be as hardy as he is when he is alone on the lead and controlling things. Here's what the Timeform U.S. Pace Projector has to say about this year's Shoemaker Mile. They have What a View on the lead, Heart to Heart not far behind. What a View beat a very promising runner, a horse you're a fan of, Pee Wee Reese, most recently on May the 20th. But Tyler Bays just dropped the hammer in that race. He sent this horse to the front. He was able to get an easy lead. And while the Timeform U.S. Pace Projector has an easy lead here, I'm not sure it's going to be so easy.
No, and again, maybe this is far too simple a way of approaching this. Didn't we see what happened when What a View and Heart to Heart hooked up just 2 starts back in the Maker's 46? And guess what? What a View came up asking. He came up empty. And you also looked through. What a View's had some really bad losses this year. I understand maybe as a 6-year-old he's lost a little bit. And that most recent start, yeah, okay, it was very good, and he was out there, and the fractions looked legitimate, but he was out on a lonesome lead all by himself. There's just a part of me that looks at What a View and says he's not the horse that he once was, and he also, keep in mind, his best races came with some cut in the ground. I'm not saying he can't win, but I don't like the way this race sets up for him either.
Bala Bali figures to take his share of play because he would benefit from a fast scenario up front. This horse won the Kilrow off a long layoff 2 starts back, but he just got a picture-perfect trip in beating What a View in Bolo that day. He was far from embarrassed in the Turf Classic at Churchill Downs most recently. I'm not sure he loved the give in the ground in that race. Cutting back to a mile works well for him. I'm just not sure he's that 103 Beyer horse that we saw in the Kilrow. He got such a great setup and trip.
I think you were on him the right time in the Kilrow. I just look at this horse now, and he's a little uninteresting to me because I don't think he's going to get hammered at the windows by any stretch, but he's going to take money. He's a name now. You get Mike Smith aboard. He just, he's an uninteresting wagering proposition for me.
We know that Bolo has it in him. He runs several big races in the past. The concern is he was no good in the Maker's 46 Mile. If you want to make the excuse this horse is a lousy shipper, every time he sets foot outside of Southern California, he throws in a dud, fine. Last time was supposed to be the time. The Thunder Road from a class, from a trip standpoint, and he was awful in that race. How is he going to rebound here?
I wonder if this is a horse that we're just seeing go off form. And I know Mike Beers brought it up in the past. You look and see this horse throughout his career. He usually does his best running off of a layoff, and now we've got 5 starts consecutive coming up with this one here. There's just a part of me that looks at it and says, I think he's a little bit off form, and at a short number, just simply because he's a name, I don't want him.
Free Rose is a 4-year-old making his first start of the season for a very good trainer in Richard Baltus. This horse did some good work last year. We do have a formulator fact, though, for Free Rose, an uncharacteristically weak number for Baltus. Past 5 years, older turf runners off a plus 180-day layoff, 1 for 24, a 58-cent return on investment. This horse liked to be forward in his races last year. He probably does sit a good trip third off the 2 speeds.
I think he could work at a very good trip. He was sort of my alternate in this spot before we get to any sort of picks. But my concern with him, I agree. I saw that same formulator fact that you just mentioned. And I also wonder, you know, the 3-year-olds in Southern California last year, they were a decent bunch. You got Frank Conversation, you know, Lucky Brian, Moonlight Drive. They were okay. They weren't superstars. I like this horse. I'm just not sure that he's quite this good.
Gangster was really thrown to the wolves in his last 2 races. He had no chance in either the Big Cap or the Charlestown Classic. His turf races are good. I'm not sure they're good enough to win a Grade 1.
Agreed. I think maybe he could be a nice sort of listed stakes type if you find the right spot for him. I don't think he's this good.
We agree with our top selection in the Shoemaker Mile, and this is a horse that Phil D'Amato took over towards the end of 2016 and into 2017. We both landed on our top pick, the number 4, Farhan, who got a nice setup to win the Thunder Road last time out, and I see no reason why he doesn't get a similar setup from a pace standpoint here.
You know, I thought that was a very good late turn of foot from this horse, who's an 8-year-old now. That was his second start for Phil D'Amato. Now he's going to make his second start off the bench. D'Amato's done good work with that angle in the past with winners last out. He should get another very good setup with those 2 speeds drawn to the inside. They should go on his clip. It's never a bad thing when you get Flavian Pratt in a graded stakes race. You brought it up. I agree 100% when I was looking through this race last night. I think there's a real chance he might be the second choice in this race, and I just think if you're looking at him and saying, oh, wow, you got 8-1 against comparable foes last time, maybe last time was the time from a numbers standpoint. I think he's a prime contender to win. I'm a little bit concerned about how much money he's going to take.
He does feel like sort of the wise guy special in this race. I'm going 4, 1, 2, and 5. Give me numbers.
I went 4, 1, 3, and 2.
The Grade 1 Shoemaker Mile, one of 2 Grade 1 races at the Great Race Place on Saturday. It's carded as race number 7. It has an approximate post time of 4 o'clock Pacific. If you're betting this nice card from Santa Anita at home, new DRF Bet subscribers get access to a $300 bonus and lots more with our VIP for a week promotion. Head on over to drfbets.com/VIP. We'll see if Heart to Heart and one of you hook it up early in the Grade 1 Shoemaker Mile. Good luck.